Alyn Smith is a proud European. He's a member of the Scottish Independence Party and holds a seat in the European Parliament. Smith's fighting to keep Scotland in the EU, because even though Britain voted to leave the EU, many Scottish voters chose to remain. But as it currently stands, Scotland will have to leave the EU along with the rest of Britain. Now he's working feverishly to secure some sort of exit from Brexit. A week of meetings lie ahead of Alyn Smith. He arrives at Strasbourg Airport.
Bonjour.
The European Parliament chauffeur service is already waiting for him and two other delegates who don't want to be filmed.
Bonjour.
They are members of the UK Independence Party, the party that has dedicated itself to getting Britain out of the EU. The journey passes in silence until Smith's phone rings.
Oh no, it's the AFCO meeting at 7. Oh, that's tonight.
So what?
There's the chaos.
No, that's okay.
wow.
No, that's
Oh, that's a quiet day. I've got something like 25 media bids over the course of the week to explain Scotland's position within all of this, and are, of course, reaching out to our friends in the UK to see what we can do as things are going forward. It's obvious that there was no plan.
Then they arrive at the European Parliament. Smith's been an EU parliamentarian for 13 years, but never before did he receive the kind of attention he does now. Following his passionate appeal to the EU Parliament, he tweeted,
"It was the speech of my life."
Millions watched it online.
I want my country. I want my country to be internationalist, cooperative, ecological, fair, European. And the people of Scotland, along with the people of Northern Ireland and the people of London, and lots of people in Wales and England also, voted to remain within our family of nations. We will need cool heads and warm hearts. But please remember this: Scotland did not let you down. Please, I beg you, chers collègues, do not let Scotland down now.
The speech, actually, I've been writing for the last 13 years. It came straight from the heart, but it was a clear articulation of we want to remain part of this, and it didn't need a lot of preparation because it didn't need a lot of thought. It was raw emotion. It was also pragmatic, hard-headed politics. We want to remain within this family of nations. Let's find a way to make us do that.
But that could prove tricky. Smith briefly stops by his office.
So this is us.
With all the scheduled meetings, he doesn't really have time to check his mail. Smith wants to meet as many MEPs as possible and win them over. Like Rebecca Harms, who chairs the group of Green parties in the EU Parliament.
But we've been talking to the Welsh, to Northern Ireland, to London, London, the Mayor's office, also to Dublin, I must say. And I think there will be a coalition of interests which will make its presence felt as the UK finally comes to some sort of negotiation. But, oh, it's a mess. It's a mess.
I feel always a bit in between two positions. I cannot decide. So on the one hand, I think a long and pending situation is not good for the UK and also not good for the 27.
No?
On the other hand, this Brexit vote caused a real new emotional move in UK in favor of Europe.
Yeah.
So it makes me again think about how can we keep the doors open.
Issues that the EU Committee on Constitutional Affairs will have to address. Although Smith is not a member, he tweeted,
"I might be seeing more of it."
The debate on how to disentangle Britain from the EU is becoming more and more heated.
A discussion
Many MEPs are pressuring Britain to leave sooner rather than later.
I have pity with the Scottish because they didn't vote to leave. They wanted to remain. But now that the results are in, we will see to it that EU rules are enforced. It's time to start negotiations about Britain's departure from the EU.
The official EU position is this: Britain must invoke Article 50 as soon as possible and then begin negotiations. But that's exactly what Smith wants to avoid.
The UK is not a country. The UK is a state made up of 4 countries. And 2 of those countries voted quite convincingly to remain. But if there was any precipitous moves to close the door on all of us now, you would give precisely the people that you don't want to help precisely what they want.
The response to Smith's appeal is lukewarm, but he takes it in his stride.
This is much more of a nuts and bolts committee about technical matters, discussing technical things in a technical way. So actually this is what the European Parliament does well. So this is how we'll actually find a solution. It's not just about the theatre, it's about the hard work as well.
Smith's hard work has already paid off back home. In his hometown of Edinburgh, he is celebrated like a hero by those in support of the EU.
When he made his speech in Brussels, he showed the true passion of the 60%, and it's really, really good to have a voice from Scotland in Brussels.
Smith lives in Edinburgh with his partner. For years, he's been fighting for the rights of gays and lesbians. He tweets,
So important these days to protect equality.
Smith studied in France and in Germany. To him, Europe is much more than just a single market. And he's concerned by the rise of right-wing populists throughout Europe, like the UK Independence Party and its leader, Nigel Farage.
I made a speech this week. And I made a speech that I'd actually been planning for years. And I made a speech because I didn't want Nigel Farage to be the face of my country.
After an unsuccessful independence referendum 2 years ago, many Scots now want a second one. But Smith doesn't seem to want to get pinned down on the issue.
This is what I'm saying to everybody in Brussels. It's, look, this is not about independence. We didn't want this, we didn't ask for this, we voted against this, but it is about safeguarding as much as we possibly can.
The reception's been great.
There's a lot of doors are open. There's a lot of people across the EU now do know that Scotland wants something different. So that's good. Yeah. And we'll need to see what happens. It's going to be a long few months. I've cancelled all holiday. I'm on it. Well, nice to see you. See you after. Oh, thanks very much. Yeah. Cheers. That's kind.
Back in the European Parliament. Yet again, Smith is told that the EU wants clarity over when Britain will leave. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage is skipping the session, as usual. During the session, Smith tweets,
Shock moving into granular discussion now, which is where we'll find solutions.
To start trade negotiations.
Outside, Farage declares his resignation as the UKIP leader.
We start from an extraordinary position that anything is better than the current rotten deal that we've got. But I've had my time. You know, everything in life runs its course. My time as leader of UKIP has run its course. I've done my bit.
Smith is not surprised by Farage's decision.
I think he's a very clever politician and he knows exactly what he's doing. The United Kingdom Independence Party is not a professional group of people. They're not very clever, half of them. They're not very hard-working. And now he's ditched them. He's left them in the dust. And he is now the independent voice, personally, of Brexit.
Smith has come to stand for all those supporting the EU, including those in his own bloc of parties. The Scottish National Party is part of the Green Alliance. But here, too, Smith has to fight. After listening to an hour-long debate on environmental issues and the proposed trade agreement between the EU and the US, Smith runs out of patience.
You're arguing about the colour of the curtains in the house while the roof is on fire. And The problems that my country has right now exist in all of your countries. You have populists who are really, really quick and clever to get their information onto YouTube or whatever else and say, blame Brussels, you're right, they do hate you. And you're arguing about whether you should accept a codicil on TTIP, yada, yada, yada. Who cares? Forgive me, the big picture is that we could lose all this.
Smith's got his backers firmly behind him. But the European Parliament isn't entirely on his side yet. So Smith gets his views through to the media. He tweets,
Manic day of interviews with France, Germany, Latvia, Italy, Austria and Bulgaria.
Smith would have much preferred to have held these talks before the Brexit referendum. Now everything's just so much more complicated, he says.
We Scots don't delude ourselves into thinking we're exceptional, unlike the British. Scotland's a small country with a population of just 5 million people. But we want to work multilaterally, internationally, with others. Our philosophy is profoundly European.
In the evening, Northern Irish bagpipers play in the European Parliament. Smith tweets,
It has never been more important to understand how Scotland in Europe works.
After this week of talks, Smith hasn't yet produced a breakthrough. But he has made one thing abundantly clear. Not everyone in Britain wants to leave the EU.